Reverend Vera McNally will be talking all about anchored in joy. Reverend Vera.
Good morning. What an amazing day. I think every day is amazing to me. And we are so blessed. I know it's raining out there, but you know what? We do need this rain. I couldn't believe when I was when I was driving up to Alaska when we left on the 20th. It seems like forever ago, and it just seems like yesterday that we got in the van or truck and started driving. And I was talking to Lauren and I saying, I can't believe how dry the sides of the roads were. It was like everything was brown. Everything was brown. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm just hoping Alaska will be a lot nicer than this brown on the side of the road. Well, all joy to me, it was. It was green up there because it was already melting, and we had snow. We had lots of snow up there in June. Yes. There was one spot when we were up there going down to Valdez, I believe it's called the Moose Pass, standing outside. I have a picture. Lauren took a picture. Here I am, little me. And up above me was another 6 feet of snow on the side of the road. Yeah, we got snow. It was amazing. It was amazing, amazing journey. I'm still absorbing everything. It was phenomenal. Uh, Always nice to be able to experience something off your bucket list. Yeah. So it was wonderful, and so wonderful to be back. Wonderful to see all your beautiful faces, and go on to see what summer's going to bring us. All right, so let's start with an opening treatment. So if you'd like, you can close your eyes and get comfortable, and let us begin with there is one life, one presence, one infinite love expressing itself all in all things. That love is joy, steady and abundant, ever present, and I recognize that this expression of love and joy lives within me, and I know that that joy lives within each and every one here. I am anchored in joy because I know that spirit within me is unchanging. Even when the shifts and circumstances change, my joy remains my foundation, my strength, and my grace. I open my heart in gratitude, laughter, lightness, and the simple blessings of this moment. Joy rises naturally within me and flows through my thoughts, my words, and my actions. I accept that I am supported, guided, and surrounded by love. My soul is anchored in truth. My heart is anchored in peace, and my life is anchored in tremendous, amazing joy. With deep gratitude, I give thanks that these words are already fulfilled in the mind of spirit. As I accept these words for myself, I accept these for each and every one here. I release these words into the universal law with faith and trust. I let it go, and so it is. Aho. So today I want to begin with a short story. Not the kind of story that ends with a clear beginning or a clear ending, but the kind of story that unfolds over time. The kind that spirit keeps whispering into your life until finally you become, and you can still hear that soft voice within. So some years ago, I was sitting beside a lake with an elder. The water was almost completely still, except for the gentle ripples moving across the lake. And we sat there very quietly, just each in our own little thoughts, and just no sound, just a few birds chirping and stuff, and just watching the ripples. And then she turned around and said something that's really settled into my heart, deep into my heart. And she said, human beings have forgotten how to sit with both sorrow and joy at the same time. So I kind of just sat there and thought, what is she talking about? And then she became silent. Didn't say a word, giving no explanation, no sermon, nothing. She just sat there. And then I said, I've repeated this to myself. Human beings have forgotten how to sit with sorrow and at the say enjoy at the same pain at the same time. And I'm thinking, how could that be? Well, as time went on, and I think many of us understand exactly what she meant by that, to having pain and sorrow and joy, not sorrow, because pain and sorrow is one on this side of the scale here, and we have joy and laughter on this side. But we all have been there. We all know that. But we have forgotten because live in a world that teaches us to choose sides. We're taught that if we are joyful, then we must be somehow ignoring reality. If we are struggling, then joy can no longer belong to us. We hear messages that say, be strong or be vulnerable, be spiritual or be human, be hopeful or be realistic. So, all through our lives, it's a choice. You have to choose one or the other. So, why can't we have both? Why can't we sit with both sorrow and with joy at the same time? Well, I'm here to tell you, you can. You have permission to do so. Yet nature itself teaches something entirely different. Nature never chooses between the storm or the sunlight. It holds both. And perhaps that is one of the deepest spiritual teachings we can ever learn. Because many people are carrying a great deal right now. There is heaviness in the world. There is uncertainty. People are holding grief and stress or loss, loneliness, burnt out. And what about this one? Emotional fatigue. How many are holding that near to their heart, right? Somewhere along the way, many of us quietly began believing the heaviness was normal, that perhaps it was even holy and spiritual. But I don't believe that spirit created us simply to survive life. I believe we were created to experience aliveness, not as perfection, not constant happiness, but aliveness, to feel that alive inside. That was what our trip was. It was just feeling alive and seeing all this wonder that was out there for us to enjoy. And a lot of that stuff, believe it or not, was free. That scenery was free just to sit there and watch all that. Even that snow, all that snow was free for me to enjoy. And there is a difference. In Ecclesiastes 3:4, there is a time to weep and a time to laugh. And I love that. It's very honest. There is a time to weep and there is a time to laugh. It does not deny that grief nor ignore pain. It simply reminds us that both belong. Ernest Holmes says, life is not just something to be endured. It is to be lived in joy, in fullness, without limit. So joy can exist even during difficult sessions. An example is that if someone is grieving a loss, may still laugh with the family, appreciate a sunset. And you can feel sad inside, but you can still appreciate that sunset. Or feel peace in prayer. Joy does not deny sorrow. It accompanies it. And when we were in Alaska, we had days that were just about 24 hours. I think we had dusk, I'm going to call it, because it wasn't dark. It was dusky for about 3 hours in a 24-hour period. And so at 11:30, we're sitting out there, and just like it was daylight. And the sun wasn't shining, but it was daylight. And it was really amazing to sit there and think that I couldn't do this in Alberta. I couldn't do it anywhere else up at north there. And we were very blessed, and I was very joyful that we didn't have any bugs. So we sat there and just marveled in that. And although I had received some sad news while we were up there, which is still heavy in my heart, and I'm not going to talk about that right now, but even sitting there and having that heaviness, I enjoyed to be able to sit outside and just be joyful that I was on this trip and I could sit outside in the sunlight and just be, and think that, wow, this is amazing that I get to live this in this lifetime. So yeah, you can have joy and sorrow at the same time. So there is a time to weep and there is also a time to laugh. Yet many people have forgotten how to return to laughter without feeling guilty. Somewhere along the way, spirituality became associated with seriousness, as though joy somehow makes us less wise, less awake, or less compassionate. But when I look at nature, when I study the indigenous wisdom, and when I read the teachings of Jesus, I see something very different. Joy is not weakness, joy is medicine. There is a season in my own life when everything felt incredibly heavy. Perhaps you have known seasons like this as well. The kind of season where your mind keeps racing long after the day is over, where responsibilities pile up, where your nervous system feels stretched thin, when even rest no longer feels restful. For me, the season began in 2006 when my late husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And you guys have heard the story, so I'm not going to go into much of it. But my world changed overnight. That's how fast things in life can change, just like that. But then in 2018, or 2008, sorry, the situation became even more painful as family conflict developed and relationships were fractured. The grief, the betrayal, the anger, the uncertainty shook my world. My heart was broken and my soul was shattered. So it can happen in a split second. And I can tell you honestly that joy and laughter were the furthest things from my mind. And at that point in my life, I simply could not imagine finding joy again because there was a lot of heaviness. You carry, when you get news like that, it's heavy. You don't see the beauty. You don't see the joy. You don't feel that. You just feel this anchor on your foot and you just feel like you're just being pulled down into the bog, right? So a very dear friend of mine come up to me one day. We're sitting having coffee and she said to me, "When was the last time you really laughed?" And I said, "There's nothing to laugh about. What are you talking about? Can't you see what's going on in my life?" She said, "I can see it very well. But this is not you. So when was the last time you really laughed, had a belly laugh?" Well, it was a long time. It was a very long time. And she said, "You need to laugh where the thing is you're laughing so hard, you're almost crying and peeing your pants. And this the kind that softens your shoulders and the kind that it interrupts fear and anger and stuff like that." So then she brought up some memories. And I sat there and I thought, I don't know if that's really funny anymore. So she brought up some more funny, crazy stories that we had done. And then I started laughing. And I started laughing to the point where I was crying. I was crying because I was happy, laughing about the memories, but I was crying as a release. It was a release, a letting go of all of that stuff, that heaviness, and that anchor finally came off of my ankle, and I was coming out of the bog. So that kind of laughter will remind you that spirit is still alive beyond the exhaustion, beyond the pain. I realized that somewhere along the way, I had begun believing that carrying heaviness made me more responsible, perhaps even more spiritual. But Spirit had other plans. Very gently, Spirit nudged many family and friends back into my life because I had kind of shut them off because I was the responsible one running around doing all the doctors and doing everything I had to do, and I didn't have time. Didn't have time for anybody else, and I didn't have time to have any joy in my life. And they encouraged me to go camping because they knew that the forest always has been a place for healing for me. And slowly, and very slowly, I began noticing something. I began noticing that nature never apologizes for joy. Never does. Birds still sing after a storm. The worms come out after the rain hits, and the birds are really happy because now they got food. Lunch is right there. It's a buffet for them. Wildflowers bloom after the forest fires. Like up north, after there's fires, they're called fireweeds that come out in these beautiful red flowers that come out, and they're absolutely stunning. And not only are they stunning, but you can eat them. I didn't know that. People were picking them and making jam out of them. Wow, it's amazing. No, I didn't buy any jam. But yeah, isn't that amazing that so out of the source of the forest burning down, the joy came out of those beautiful flowers. It was amazing. So creation continually chooses renewal. Indigenous teachings have long understood that connection between healing and the natural world. They remind us that we are not separate from creation. We belong to it. Healing happens when we return to relationships to the earth, relationships with spirit, relationships with community, and relationships with ourselves. That is why ceremony often includes drumming, singing, storytelling, dancing, silence, and connection to the land, not because suffering is being ignored, because joy and connection restore balance. And now our modern science is beginning to affirm what ancient wisdom has always known. Science show that time spent in nature lowers stress hormones, causes the nervous system to calm down, and increases emotional resilience. Science tells us that gratitude changes brain chemistry. Meditation rewires neuron pathways. Laughter releases healing chemistry into the body. Have you noticed after you laugh, you feel really, really good? You feel really good, and life is just so wonderful. So we need to laugh more. We need to laugh more. We need to laugh at ourselves. How many people are afraid to laugh at themselves? I mean, I'm always laughing. I mean, I'm laughing at everything. I think, after my devastation news back a couple of years back there with Gary and the Alzheimer's, and when I finally found myself again, I find life just joyous, just absolutely joyous. Even in the sad things that happen and the news and stuff that I receive, it's still, I look for the beauty in it because for me, there's a lesson in there for me to hold on to. Now, connection improves emotional well being. Science isn't solely catching up with what Spirit has always whispered through creation. Sometimes healing is not complicated. Listen to that. Sometimes healing is not complicated. We complicate healing. If we would just take what is needed to be done and embrace it and just let all the other stuff go, we heal a lot faster. Sometimes the medicine is sunlight or stillness. It could be music or just a deep breath. Sometimes the medicine is water, community, prayer, a walk among the trees, a drumbeat echoing through the hallways. Sometimes joy itself becomes sacred medicine. And then I think about Jesus, who was a metaphysician. He was a healer. He was a teacher. The first metaphysician that walked 2,500 years ago. He had so much to teach us if we would just sit and listen and take the time. People often imagine Jesus as constantly serious and burdened, but children ran to him. Children are naturally drawn to warmth, presence, and authenticity. Wind my mouth up. I'm still on holidays. Jesus spoke of seeds, vineyards, lilies, birds, and light. He attended weddings. He shared meals with many people. He walked among ordinary people. Even among suffering, he continued teaching love and joy. That is sacred resilience. In John 10:10, Jesus said, I have come that they may have life and have it abundantly. Abundant life, not merely surviving, not dragging ourselves through existence, believing exhaustion is spirituality. Life, connected life, awake life, spirit-filled life. And I believe many people are hungry for that kind of life today. Not superficial positivity, not denial, but genuine aliveness. Choosing joy does not mean denying pain. That is not spirituality, that is avoidance. There are times when grief must be honored. There are seasons when healing takes time. There are realities that require compassion, courage, and action. Even Jesus wept. Even the earth has winter. But winter is not the end of the story. Spring always returns. And with that, bears. Perhaps part of the spiritual maturity is learning not to build our permanent home in the darkest seasons of our lives. Perhaps part of spiritual maturity is learning not to build condominiums in the valley of the shadow that keeps us bogged down. But how many of us build those and we have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 stories, right? We don't need those. Science of Mind teaches us that consciousness shapes our experience. Ernest Holmes taught that the thoughts we consistently hold influence conditions we create. This does not mean pretending difficult things are not happening. It means remembering that where attention goes, energy flows. And we all hear that in this teaching. So what you think about, you bring about. So we need to be careful about our thoughts. If we continue to rehearse fear, hopelessness, and anxiety, those pathways become stronger. So creating those neural pathways. And that's what we're creating. So that's what we're going to create in our lives. But when we intentionally practice gratitude, compassion, wonder, presence, meaning you're present right here in this moment, new pathways begin to form. Joy becomes practice. Peace becomes practice. Presence becomes practice. And gradually the nervous system remembers us to take safety. We're safe in our own soul. Our souls will never give us more than what we can handle. Other than when you think you're in that pain in that situation, you think that's it, you can't do anymore. But you always come through on the other side, and usually in a very joyous manner, because you've gone through the pain, you've gone through the healing and everything else, and there you stand, strong and in strength. And gradually your nervous system becomes back to normal. A person may walk into a sanctuary carrying invisible burdens that no one else can see. How many times have we come here feeling heavy, feeling sad? But then something happens. A song may touch your heart. Someone might give you a hug. A drum beat echoes through the room. Or crystal bowls will start playing. And it just lifts that burden. It just lifts that up. And a message reminds us that we are not alone. And for a moment, the weight lifts and we're feeling good. We're feeling that joy come back into our hearts. That moment matters. Never underestimate what sacred community can do. There is healing in gathering. There is healing in shared presence. I often return to the wisdom of the elder beside the lake. The earth never chooses between the storm and the sunlight. It holds both. Presence, perhaps that is one of the greatest definitions of spiritual maturity. Spirituality is not becoming untouched by life. It is becoming spacious enough to hold it all. Isn't that wonderful? In our wonderful little bodies, our soul says we can take it all. They'll balance us out without us getting involved in it and causing it more drama. We just need to step back and let our souls take care of it. And it always does. The heartbreak and the laughter, and still choosing love, still choosing compassion, still choosing life. Nehemiah says in 8:10, the joy of the Lord is your strength, not your escape, your strength. Joy gives the soul resilience. Joy reminds us that darkness is not the whole story. Joy reconnects us with spirit. Perhaps that is why oppressive systems throughout history have always tried to crush the joy, because joyful people always remember their power. So perhaps the invitation today is not to pretend that life is perfect, because it's not. Life is not perfect, as what society has said what life is perfect. Who has a perfect family here? If you do, please invite me in to be part of your family. Because it's not. We don't have the perfect family, but they're perfect for us. Because they're there to teach us what we need to do. So be joyous in all the siblings that you have and that you've been fighting with, or your children that really cause you a lot of gray hair, because I have a few of those. And, our grandkids. We've got the perfect family. But they may not be perfect in what society says perfect families. And I don't know what a perfect family is. Everybody's dysfunctional. We live in a dysfunctional world, don't we? Of course we do. But in that dysfunction, there's joy. There's happiness. There's laughter. There's community. So what do you choose? You don't have to choose either one. You can walk in here in sorrow and still feel your joy. So you also create the beauty in your life for connection, for laughter, for sacred relationships within itself. Maybe healing begins when we allow ourselves to notice joy without guilt. The smell of the rain, we have the perfect opportunity today. The warmth of the sunlight, which is coming tomorrow. The laughter of children. We just had a brand new great granddaughter born 2 days ago. Haven't gone to see her yet. And I have another great grandchild coming in the next couple of weeks. And then in December, I'm going to have a great nephew come into the world. So, wow, 3 amazing little bundles of joy coming into my life. And to see the one that's down coming in, the great grandnephew, I'm going to have to go down to the Maritimes to see him or her. We don't know what it's going to be yet. So, next trip. And what about the silence of morning prayer or morning meditation? Does that bring you joy? It does when we come here to the center, and Tress did a beautiful job of this there. It really touched my heart. I had a lot of emotions come up and really heal part of that sorrow. Thank you. Had a few tears coming out. Don't want to do that. So these are not small things. These are reminders that spirit is still present, still moving, still creating, and still healing. So this week I invite you into a simple spiritual practice. Notice what brings you joy. What brings that spirit back into your life? Not what distracts you, and not what numbs you out, because we're good at numbing out. Perhaps it's silence. Perhaps it's music. Or how about just nature, just going for a walk in nature? Perhaps it's silence. Or how about just going outside in the rain and jumping in the puddles? Are you with me, Tress? I thought so. Oh, there, Kathy. Who else is? We're going to go out here. We could probably. Oh, the sun's coming out. See, I told you, sun's coming out. But pay attention to what softens your heart, because sometimes joy arrives quietly. It doesn't come in with a big band. It doesn't say, "Hooray, we're here." It just sneaks in very quietly, and you just feel so content, so happy. And sometimes it's not fireworks, but just a breath. Just take that breath and feel the peace. Feel that peace. And as a gentle remembering, I'm going to get you to repeat this after I say these. I am still alive. I am still alive. Spirit is still here. Spirit is still here. And light still lives within me. The world does not need more exhausted spirituality. It needs more grounded people. More people that want to live in their joy, more compassionate people, awake people, people who can cry and still sing, people who can feel deeply and still notice beauty, people who know that joy is not weakness, it is sacred courage. As you leave here today, remember this: you do not have to choose between honesty and hope. You do not have to deny pain in order to embrace joy. You are allowed to hold both. Just as the earth holds both the storm and the light, perhaps, just perhaps, joy has been patiently waiting for you to return to it. And so it is, aho.